pillow sewing project. So we're gonna make a cover for the pillow. This is the one I have. First thing we gotta do is you gotta do a little math. So I'm gonna measure my pillow. It is 16 inches wide, 16 inches, and it is 11 inches tall. So for the front, we need to cut one rectangle that's the height plus 1. So my height is 11 plus 1 is going to be 12. So it's going to be 12 inches tall, and the width is 16 plus 1. It's going to be 17. So I need to cut one rectangle that is 12 by 17. And then for the back, we have two rectangles. The height is going to be the same as the front, so it's going to just be 12. The width is, to determine width, divide the front width by 2, then add 3 inches. So my width, 16 plus 1 is 17, divided by 2 is 8.5, plus 3 equals 8, 9, 10, 11. 11.5 inches. So I need to cut two rectangles that are 12 inches by 11.5 inches. Okay. All right, so I have this nice butterfly fabric I'm gonna use. I'm gonna do the cut out the front now, 12 by 17. I'm gonna make a straight line up here. Okay, so I'm gonna mark this edge here, and then this ruler is 18 inches long, so I'm gonna move it down, move the 1 inch to that mark, and then this will be my 17 inches wide, and I need it 12 inches tall, so I'm gonna line up the 12 with that line. Mark the edge and the end, and do the same on the other side. 12. And then I'll find these marks down at the bottom. Line up my ruler and mark the bottom. All right, so I have my front rectangle all marked. And we'll do the same for the back. I'm gonna mark a line parallel to the edge. This one needs to be 11.5 inches tall, so there's 11.5. And 11.5 over here. Go. I'm just going to mark this one at the bottom. It needs to be 12 inches wide. So let's line up our 12-inch mark with this line. That will be the other edge. Make a line here. And I'll connect this line over to this line. All right, so I have marked one. Let's mark the other one. Needs to be, what did we say? This is 11.5, so this one needs to be 12. and 12. And then I'll connect this line up to that line. All right, so there's our 2 backs. Let's cut it out. All right, so I've cut out my 2 backs and my front. So now we have to prepare the back. So I'm going to take my back piece with right side down, fold one long side up 1 inch and press. So that's what I'm going to do first. Just make sure that this is your height side. It's how tall the pillow is. All right, we're gonna fold it in again, 1 inch, and press. All right, now we're gonna sew top stitching close to this folded edge. We're gonna back stitch at the beginning, back stitch at the end. So we are trying to find our buttonhole placement. So I had folded this into thirds and put those pins in. Now we unfold it. Now if we start our buttonholes here and make them go this way, our buttons will end up to be here. And it's a little off center. It's a little too close to this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these buttons over to the center of my pins, and then I'm going to move these pins over to this side. Like that. So now I have the pins where I want to start the buttonholes. The first thing we have to do is find our buttonhole foot. This is where it attaches to the machine, and this section in the back gets bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller, and you have to put your button inside here, and that will tell the machine how big to make your buttonhole. All right. So come over to the machine. I'm going to put the buttonhole foot on here. All right, my buttonhole foot is on. I'm going to take the top thread and put it down into this hole. All right, so both of our threads are coming out of the side of the machine between the presser foot and the needle plate. So that's the first thing. Now we have to find, there are 3 buttonholes on this machine that we have to find. The first one is right here, no, this one. Right here, we have to pull that down so it meets up with the buttonhole foot right there. The second one is on this stitch selector. We have to turn it to the buttonhole. Then the length one, we're putting it on the buttonhole. If you want a very fat buttonhole, you can put it that far. If you want kind of a medium buttonhole, have it in the middle. And if you want a kind of thin buttonhole, put it that way. I like a medium. I find that the fat is a little hard. The foot gets stuck on it and doesn't run through very nicely. So the medium is what I shoot for. And then the width, you can do between 3 and 5, but I like the 5. Okay? All right. So on this machine, the buttonhole starts at the front and it will form back here. So this needle that I placed, I'm gonna put it where I want the buttonhole to start. So put it there, take out my pin, and make sure that the buttonhole is placed in the center of this placket here, so it's nice and centered. And then I just start. Push the presser button. Now you have to watch when the machine gets back to the place where it started. You have to stop the machine. The machine is not going to know, oh, I finished the buttonhole, now I'm going to stop. It doesn't know that, so you have to pull your foot up when you see that it's finished, okay? And then pick up your presser foot and let's take a look. Good, looks great. Now, similarly to not knowing that your foot is finished, your machine also doesn't know, oh, that was one buttonhole, and if you want to do another one, I'll do another one. You have to tell the machine, okay, we need to start from the beginning of the buttonhole and start again, or if you just try to do another buttonhole right now, it's just going to keep on right where it was, keep on going, which we don't want. We want to start a new buttonhole. So we have to reset, boom, boom, okay? And we'll do our second one. All right, everything looks lined up well. I reset it. My 3 buttonhole things are set up, so let's go. Okay, all done. All right, 1 and 2, wonderful. All right, to finish the buttonholes, we're gonna take these extra threads that are hanging up here. I'm going to thread it onto my needle. I'm going to poke it through to pull it back to the other side. And there we go. And if I want to be extra neat, what I can do is I can put my needle into the casing through, so it's in between the layers. Then I can clip my threads to the same length and thread the needle with those 2 threads and pull those through so they're inside. Then you don't have any threads showing. So we'll do it for this one too. All right, so we have the right side all nice and the wrong side all nice. The way we open these up is with our seam ripper. We don't want to rip too far into our project, so I'm going to put a pin right at the top of that buttonhole. And I'm going to take my seam ripper, starting at the bottom, poke it through, and then carefully going straight up, not cutting any of those stitches we just put in. Go straight up to that pin, and that pin will stop your seam ripper from cutting. Great. Let's do the other one. And the true test, see how the button fits. Perfect. All right, now we're going to work on the buttons. To mark the placement of the button, first you line up the two plackets. This is my placket, and this is my placket with the buttonholes. You line them up, the top and the bottom, right on top of each other. And then you take your marking pencil, right in the middle of that buttonhole, you're going to make a mark through to this side. So we can see those marks, and that's where we're going to put the button. To place the button, we're going to get some clear tape, put the button on it, put it right at the spot we want it to go, and it'll be held there. Now we're going to sew the button with the machine. So we don't need this buttonhole thing anymore. We actually need a C, because we need this zigzag. So we're going to do the zigzag stitch. Our length is going to be 0, because we actually don't want to travel anywhere. We want to stay right where we are. And width, I'm not sure what our width is going to be. We're going to have to play with that once we get the button in there. So we lift up the presser foot, line up our button, put the presser foot down. We're going to use the hand wheel at first to get started. If you just push on the presser foot, your button holes might not be lined up with the needle, and you're going to break your needle very fast. So just use the hand wheel, go carefully, and I'm hitting the button, so I need to adjust it. Okay, I found the hole, and I'm hitting the button, so I need to make it wider. Found the hole. Found the hole. Found the hole. All right, now you can press on the presser foot. And take it out, see what we did. Great, we sewed on the button. Do it with the other one. All right, so we have these threads up at the top. So I'm going to put my needle down, my hand sewing needle down, put these threads into the hand sewing needle and pull them to the back side. Alright, so all of our threads are pulled to the back now. I'm going to take these 4 threads back here, tie them in a knot, and then pull them to the inside of the casing. Alright, so my 2 backs are finished. One has the buttons, one has the buttonholes. Let's button them. Okay, now I'm going to secure these ends. I'm going to just sew 1/2 inch seam allowance, sew those together, the top and the bottom. Okay, so the back is complete. Wonderful. Okay, now we're gonna work on the second part of our pillow. We're gonna make another pillow putting piping around the edges of the pillow. So for the piping, we're going to wrap the piping in bias strips. Bias strips are cut at a 45-degree angle to the straight grain of your fabric, 45 degrees. If you have to cut your own, then you have to cut at that 45-degree angle, cut your strips out. There are also packages of bias tape that you can buy in the store, and you can use those as well. To see how wide your strips need to be, you need to get your piping. I'm going to use this for my piping. Our seam allowance is 1/2 inch, and then so it's the circumference of your piping plus 2 seam allowances. So I'm going to wrap this around. I'm going to give myself 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch on this side before the piping starts, and then it's going to go around the piping, and then I'm going to give myself another 1/2 inch, which is 4/8. So it's almost 2 inches, more like 1 3/4. That will be how wide I need my piping to be. And I have this packaged piping. Let's see if it's right for us. Great, just under 2 inches. That'll be perfect. So I'm gonna iron this flat. All right, so here's my bias strip, here's my piping. So I'm gonna lay my piping down inside the middle of the wrong side of the bias, and I'm going to fold it over, making sure these raw edges are even. Then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine and sew right along the side of the piping using my zipper foot. The zipper foot is going to allow me to get as close as possible to the piping when I sew. And I'm going to sew with a straight stitch. I'm going to make it a little longer. It's called a basting stitch when you make it longer. So I'm going to put my stitch length at like 4, make it longer, and I'm going to use the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So here's my finished piping. All right, so here's my front pillow cover, and we're gonna attach the piping to the front now, all the way around. Now let's think about things for a second. If we start the piping here at the center of our front pillowcase, and then we join it up at the end, and then after that we put the back on, we're gonna have a lot of layers of fabric right there. We're gonna have our front, our 2 piping fabrics, and this thick placket here. I'm afraid that's gonna be too thick, so I don't want to start and stop my piping right at the same place I'm gonna put my placket. So let's be sure to start over on the side, okay? Not in the corner, because that'll be hard to join, but we'll start kind of in the middle over here on the side, okay? So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna pin my piping to this front all the way around. When I get to the corners, if you turn like that, it's gonna be very difficult to sew with that all curled up like that. So the way we fix that is get our scissors and clip Don't clip into the stitching, but clip up to the stitching. And then it'll be much easier to turn the corner. Okay? So we're gonna pin and clip the corners like that all the way around. I'm gonna show you the clipping one more time. So we don't wanna clip at this edge of the fabric because that will be turning in the wrong place. We need to clip, we need to come in our seam allowance, 1/2 inch from this edge and clip there. Close to, but not through the stitching line. And then we can turn it. That. All right, so I have my piping pinned around all 4 sides with my corners clipped. Now when I get back to the beginning, what I'm gonna do, when I sew this, I am not gonna start sewing right here up at the top. I need to leave a little bit loose for making the connection in the next step. I'm gonna start sewing at this pin. It's about 1.5 to 2 inches away from here. So I'm gonna start sewing there. I'm gonna sew all the way around, also with my basting stitch, long stitch, with setting at 4, all the way around with my zipper foot. And then I'm gonna stop sewing right about here. So this part will be free, okay? When it's time to go around a corner, go real slow, and you might need to, it's hard to like do a true pivot just turning one time on these corners because the piping is pretty bulky to get around. So I actually kind of go at a 45-degree angle a little bit first and then turn again. And if I need to do that a couple times to feel like I'm getting around that corner, I can. Oh, I got stuck somehow. There we go. So now we're gonna work on this join right here. So first thing we're gonna do is cut this extra off. We're gonna cut it at the point where it meets up to here. So cut here. And so we have about the same on each side. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take out these stitches here. Open this part up. And we're gonna cut this piece out so that this cording meets up with the cording inside here. And what we'll do is open this up, lay this cording inside, and fold it over, and then we have one continuous cord inside, no cord overlapping or doubling up. That would be too thick and make a big bump. So we just want it to be straight. But now what I have is this edge right here. This is a raw edge. I don't want that to show on my project. So what I'll do is I'll open this up, fold it down, take it back over, fold it, put that guy back inside. And there we go. So this is our join, and I need to go back to the sewing machine and baste this together. Okay, so my front is finished. and my back is finished. So what I'll do is I'm gonna put them together. Lay my back on top of my front. I'm gonna pin all the way around the edges, and I'm gonna sew again all the way around the edges. You'll need to use a zipper foot still, because otherwise it's gonna be hard to get close to that piping. When you sew, you're gonna need to get as close to that piping as you can. And again, when you go around the corners, come down, probably pivot just a quarter, at a 45-degree angle, and then pivot again to go straight down, okay? Okay, I finished sewing around the outside of the pillow. I did get a few puckers in places, but once it has a big pillow inside, I think it's not really going to show, so I'm not going to worry about those. Besides, this is the back side instead of the front side. Let's check the front side. Front side looks pretty good, so I'm not going to worry about those little puckers on the back side. Okay, let's turn her inside out and put the pillow inside, see what she looks like. All right, I turned her inside out. I haven't stuffed her yet, But when I turned her inside out, I noticed I have a few places where my basting stitching is showing, especially in the corners there. The other parts look okay. And those show just because it was hard to get to sew so close to the cording when I was going around the corner. So I have a choice. I can either go back to the sewing machine and try to sew those a little closer to get a closer fit, so those basting stitches don't show, or I can just remove the basting stitches. As long as my clip, the clip that I did, as long as that is not showing, then integrity wise it's fine. So I could just remove those stitches that are showing and leave it as is. I think I am going to try to get a closer fit first. If that doesn't work, then I'll just remove the stitches and not worry about it.